Hi, and welcome to this live reading from Rule, the Larussio Legacy Book 1 by Via Marie, and this is presented by Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Chase. As we exit the limo, we are surrounded by security. The portly doorman dressed in uniform greets us as we enter the New York Preston skyrise and head for the private elevator that will take us to our penthouse. When the doors open into the foyer of our home, we are greeted by another man. "The condo is clear," he says to me, and Sheldon, who has been placed in charge of Katerina's security. The Chicago boys are in the city. They're still crawling all over the Larussio estate, but the place is locked down like a fortress, one of the guards says. "I don't want the teams getting spread too thin. Call for backup and let me know when they're in place," Sheldon says. "Thanks, everyone," I say, knowing he'll handle any situation that may arise, and I guide Katerina through the expansive, open concept condo. Gabby is in the kitchen and wipes her hands on her apron, bustling around the counter to pull Katerina into her arms and then me. "Land's sakes, the boys weren't telling me anything. I didn't even know you were safe until just a few moments ago. Shame on you for keeping me in the dark," Gabby says, smacking me playfully on the arm. The woman who has been like a surrogate mother to me and has maintained my homes for the last 7 years was worried. "Sorry, Gabby. They had to be extra careful. We were supposed to be on our way to Italy and wanted anyone trying to find us to believe that was still the plan," I say. "You know I worry," Gabby says, sashaying her round figure to the counter to pour each of us a cup of coffee. "No need, Gabby. It's being sorted," I say, helping Katerina settle onto the bar stool. Says you. Sit. I figured if your security team wanted me here that you were up to no good. I have some blueberry mix made, and it won't take long to make you both some pancakes," Gabby says, opening the refrigerator to pull out a ceramic bowl covered in saran wrap while we drink our coffee. She bustles about the kitchen, getting our breakfast prepared, and places the blueberry pancakes on the table. The aroma wafts through the air, and Katerina's face pales. "You okay, baby?" I ask. "My stomach still isn't quite right," she says quietly. Gabby takes a close look at her. "Rough night," she says to Katerina and gives me our scowl. Katerina smiles. "It's not his fault. We were celebrating Jenny's exoneration, and I had way too much to drink last night. My head is pounding. Hopefully the ibuprofen kicks in soon," Katerina says. "I know just the cure, sweetie," Gabby says, pulling out a can of tomato juice, a lemon, hot sauce, and going to the bar to grab a bottle of vodka. "The best thing in the world for a hangover is a Bloody Mary," Gabby declares as she begins whipping her concoction together. "Gabby, she has a lot of work to do in order to prepare for an important meeting this afternoon," I admonish. She narrows her eyes into slits at me. "And if she drinks this, her headache will be gone. She's dehydrated, needs some salt, a bit of spice, the vitamins in the tomato juice, and just a little hair of the dog. It's not strong and she'll be better in no time," Gabby says, placing her concoction emphatically in front of Katerina and handing her a straw. "I've never had a Bloody Mary, but I'm willing to try anything at this point," Katerina says, initially sipping the drink tentatively and then taking large pulls from the straw until she has finished it in its entirety. "That was really good. I'm sure I feel at least a little better," Katerina says, laughing, handing Gabby her empty glass. Gabby raises her eyebrows in triumph. "Of course you do, child. Now let's make you one without the vodka. The sodium and other nutrients you lost last night will be replaced shortly enough," she says, bustling into the counter to blend the drink. I watch on with amusement as another glass is placed in front of Katerina, and she chugs that one too. "It's been in my family for generations. You'll be good as new in no time, just like magic. Now you need to eat. Loads of carbs and real butter to soak up that alcohol," Gabby says, placing the stack of pancakes in front of us once again and slathering Katerina's with Irish cream butter. Katerina grins at me mischievously and takes a bite and then another. I want to do something utterly obscene with that mouth of hers, but my phone begins to vibrate with message after message, turning my attention to it. I excuse myself from the conversation, hit my attorney's number, and listen to him for a few brief moments. "Have it delivered to me at our condo in the city ASAP. I'll review it and be in touch," I say, hanging up and looking into the questioning sea blue eyes of my wife. "What was that all about?" Katerina says, passing me her plate with one untouched pancake heavily laden with butter. I ignore her question and push her plate back toward her, gesturing for her to eat while Gabby still has her back turned. "So full," she whispers, rubbing her belly by way of explanation. I smirk and take pity on her, brushing the uneaten pancake onto my plate just before Gabby turns back to Katerina. "Good, you've cleaned your plate. You'll feel better in no time," she says, nodding with confidence. My baby's curiosity is not to be deterred, though. What was your conversation about? Katerina asks, as Gabby walks back into the kitchen with our plates. It was our attorney. Carlos updated his will and living power of attorney documents a while back, naming the two of us co-executors of the Larussio estate, with detailed instructions on how he wants his empire to be handled. Her brow furrows with concern for her father. You heard me tell our attorney the swelling in his brain is leveling off. There's every indication he'll get through this, but until he does, he safeguarded his empire to ensure the legacy he wants for his family comes to life. He named you and one of your cousins, Giovanni Larussio, as the sole beneficiaries if both parents are deceased, with a wealth of contingencies that need to be fulfilled. We can review it once we receive the details. If he's going to pull through, why would he do that now? Katerina asks. He drew it up before the accident. He's not well enough yet to take the reins, and so this document has taken effect per his time stipulations. Carlos trusts you will honor his wishes while he's unable to handle the business himself, and knows I won't let anyone stand in your way. I have absolutely no experience with anything like this. The family barely knows me, and there are about 1,000,000 other reasons, including this headache from hell, that leave me completely incompetent to deal with this, Katerina says. But I cut her off gently, taking her hand in mine. You will do fine, I say as I stand. I'm still processing, Katerina says, her eyes gliding over my body, the path of her eyes heating my skin as it settles on my cock, which hardens with the desire of her gaze. I clear my throat and smirk as I lean over and kiss the tip of her nose, taking in the sparkling blue eyes and heated cheeks. She knows I've caught her admiring the view, and I love how her flushed cheeks give her need away. I'm having the documents delivered shortly. That's the conversation you overheard, I say, taking a drink of my coffee. She shakes her head and her long auburn curls sway with the movement. If they are the ones that hurt my parents, I will not stop until they pay. They are stupid if they don't think I have what it takes to go up against that family. My jaw tightens at the very thought of her in harm's way. Katerina, your dad will pull through this. You are a Larussio and will rise to the challenge, but you should rest before we prepare for your meeting with your uncle and Gio later, I say, pushing a wayward strand of hair behind her ear. She nods and nuzzles into my chest as I pick her up and carry her to our room, settling her into the king-size bed to undress her and caress her with my tongue until she is sated and sleepy. I intend to leave her in our bed alone, but her arms wrap around my neck and I curl her into my arms as she drifts to sleep. I look down at my wife, her long auburn hair splayed across her back, and watch the gentle rise and fall of her chest for the next half an hour as she rests, carefully slipping out of bed so as not to wake her once she falls into a deep slumber. There is much to do today to ensure the safety of my spirited young wife. Gio. I stare out to the blue-green sea crashing against the Amalfi coast so far below. This view from my home office, which usually settles my agitation, does nothing to calm me today. I reread the message from my great-uncle requesting me to travel to the United States to meet my cousin, Katerina Myers Larussio Prestian, the daughter of my favorite uncle, Carlos Larussio. My jaw shifts with annoyance. The family members who have met my cousin seem to love her, but I haven't seen a paternity test or any evidence that would positively conclude she is a Larussio, and until Uncle Carlos is well enough to have visitors or speak on that phone, there's no reason to journey that far. I send my great-uncle an email letting him know that I have no interest in flying halfway across the globe to talk business, knowing he wants me on the plane in less than 2 hours. A message from our security team arrives, alerting me that the package my attorney needs me to review has arrived. I stride down the stairs toward the great room, but Victor, the estate butler, is already at the door accepting it as I walk up behind him. He hands it to me while thanking the delivery driver, and I head back to my study to read its contents. I close the heavy mahogany door to my office, slide into the leather executive chair, and open the sealed envelope. My chest tightens when I see that it is Uncle Carlos Larussio's living will. If his attorney is sending me this, his health must be deteriorating. Damn it! I should have been there when he first got in the accident, and would have been if it hadn't been for those damn negotiations. If that deal had gone south, it would have meant the loss of thousands of jobs in the area. I know Carlos would have wanted me to stay and seal the deal, If it hadn't been for that, I would have been on the first plane over. Hospital rules and security clearance be damned. This makes no sense at all. I've talked to Don Prestian, my uncle's best friend, almost every day and have had every indication that he is getting better, but still is not well enough to receive visitors. Or I would have been to see him already. I read the first 2 pages and already have questions. The 3rd through the 5th are complex and full of stipulations to ensure the vast Larussio resort he wants to create in the United States moves ahead swiftly. I'm only halfway through the document when a call comes in from my great-uncle. Giovanni, Carlos must be in a bad way. It's been too long since we've spoken. I'm going to America with or without you, he says. Even though I've had no indication his health is declining, I'm holding his living will in my hand, and that can't be good. When do we leave? I say, changing my mind, knowing that I can take care of my other commitments in the air. The Prestian Corporation has a jet at the airport right now, refueling from an overseas trip, and will be leaving for the States soon. I talked with Don Prestian, and his son is making arrangements for us to be on that flight, my great-uncle says. Why his plane when ours is in the private hangar? I ask. I'll fill you in on the way over, he says. I'll be ready. Do we have any details about Carlos? I ask. We don't know much, Giovanni. It's too early. They put him in a coma to let the swelling in his brain subside, and they've brought him out of it, but only time will tell. There's never been any love lost between you two. Why travel halfway around the world to see him? I'm also meeting with my great-niece, Katerina, and her husband. I want you to come with me and meet your cousin, my great-uncle says. You mentioned that before. What are you expecting to learn that we don't already know? I ask about this alleged daughter of Carlos, who is currently listed as a beneficiary in Carlos's living will along with myself. I asked you to come with me because something's not right. Carlos may not have been acting of sound mind even before he was in the accident, he says. Now it's coming together. Great-uncle has somehow received a copy of Carlos's will and knows he has not been named in it, not one mention at all, as though he doesn't exist. I smile to myself. Of course, in my great-uncle's mind, that would be completely insane. We didn't originally think his accident had anything to do with us, but it may be the Chicago Mafia. And if it is, they're not going to stop with Carlos and his family in New York. You can be damn sure that our entire family will be in jeopardy, my great-uncle says. I'm convinced this trip is more about the will than anything, but at least now I understand why we're taking a Prestian jet. He's concerned about the Chicago family. We've got a long trip ahead of us and plenty of time to talk, so I let it go. Let's continue our discussion in the air. I have a few things that require my attention before we leave. I'll meet you at the airport, I say, listening a few more minutes before we both disconnect. I'll have your bags prepared shortly, Victor says, having heard my conversation while walking through the dining room. I nod and mouth my thanks while connecting to my attorney. He answers after a few rings. I need a favor, and this can't go through the family security. Can you get me an in-depth background on Katerina Myler's Larussio Prestian? I ask. I thought you might want that once you read the documents. I've already sent through the request, Thomas says. Excellent. Hopefully the jet we're taking back is wired, I say, still annoyed we're using the Prestian Corp jet to America and not one of our own. I'll get you the information as soon as it arrives, Thomas says. One last thing. Have you spoken to my great-uncle about the content of the documents you sent over this morning? I ask. He wasn't named. I wouldn't have any reason to talk to him. Why do you ask? Thomas says. I would bet a good deal that he already knows exactly what those documents contain. I'm more than curious how he got his hands on the information, I say. You can be assured the information didn't come from this office. I was contacted directly by Carlos's attorney, and it was delivered to me personally with a copy for you. I would presume he contacted Katerina's attorney and that by now she has a copy too. I'll look into it a little bit later. Thanks again, I say, disconnecting and heading to my suite to get showered and dressed for the trip. When I return downstairs, my bags and briefcase are already by the door. The car will be around momentarily. Your passport and electronics are in the side pocket of your brief, Victor says as the driver pulls up in a sleek black Lincoln and steps out of the car to open my door. I wave him away and climb into the back. The driver navigates the traffic with a security car in front of and behind us all the way to the airstrip. As he pulls up to the private entrance of the airport, my uncle is waiting along with his entire entourage. My jaw shifts with frustration that our family has such a need for security, seemingly always on someone's list for revenge. This is what happens when your family has a history like ours, revered and respected by some, but hated by many. He pulls me close and kisses each cheek, and regret for thinking of him so poorly surfaces. My great-uncle would do anything for anyone in our family. He took me in at an early age when my parents were killed. While not supportive of me branching out and going into business on my own, he did not stop me when I made it clear that that's what I wanted to do, although he could have done precisely that. "How are you?" I ask, realizing he looks wearier than I've seen before. "I'm well, Giovanni, just a little tired, but I have to admit, I'm looking forward to resting on the way over." "Good. Let's hope this thing we're flying in is comfortable," I say, still rankling somewhat at not taking my own jet. The Larussio jets are the newest and top of the line, but as we walk out to the tarmac, a powerful, sleek plane is pulling up to the ramp in front of us. I smirk to myself, looking at the almost identical model of my own Gulfstream, only in white with a substantial black Preston Corp emblem on the tail. A couple of security guards have already boarded to clear the plane while the others escort us onto the tarmac and onto the plane. The pilot introduces himself and his co-pilot, and after a few moments of weather talk, we are escorted into the main cabin. Whoever designed the interior was talented. The windows are long and oval, maximizing the natural mid-morning light streaming in. The leather couch is situated underneath the windows and then curves into the cabin, allowing extra seating around a large fireplace with a television monitor over the mantel. The sleek black bar in the corner is a nice touch. I walk through the main cabin, opening the door to the impressively decorated master bedroom. The utilization of space is impressive, with drawers underneath the queen-size bed and television monitor over the fireplace in this room too, along with a large puffy chair with a crocheted afghan tossed over it, making the room look lived in. I peek into the bathroom and nod, taking in the dual shower heads and sleek corner design that provides more usable space throughout. I walk back out into the main cabin and tell the security team they can put my uncle's things in the bedroom. He looks like he should rest, and as soon as we take off, my great-uncle lets me know he's off to do just that. I settle into the large chair in the main cabin, taking out the documents from my briefcase. I've barely started to read when the door opens and a short-skirted, leggy blonde with a couple too many buttons undone on her blouse saunters in, giving me a clear view of her excellent cleavage. I half smile, hoping my disdain isn't apparent as she sashays over. You can see them coming from a mile away, every damn one of them. They should have a tattoo that says, "Well, fuck if you're rich." "I didn't get a chance to introduce myself when you boarded. We were preparing the security quarters and galley for the return trip," the blonde says, holding out her hand to me. "I'm Bridget, and will be servicing you during the flight," she says, winking at me. I smirk. She didn't need the wink. I didn't miss the innuendo. "Well, Bridget, I'll most definitely let you know if I require service," I say as the door opens again, and this time I find myself staring at a dark-haired beauty with deep-set brown eyes with golden flecks that seem to flash as she watches the exchange. She pushes a wisp of her waist-long hair out of her eyes, and her naturally colored plump red lips tighten with disdain.